well met, said he. I'm just returning from the salt sea, and it's all for the love of thee.
Like when I watch myself talk, I'm 2 seconds behind. I'm probably not going to look at the screen because it's very distracting. But okay, we're
I don't
recording.
get that, but when Stephen laughs and he puts his head back, he disappears between Elisabeth.
I do see that.
That's freaking me out. If I had dropped acid before this,
Yeah.
I'd be
I
running
can
around
never
screaming right now.
It's not blinking. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Okay, so Shirley.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
So I will say when I recommended it, I sort of did it, not sure if it would work out, because at that point I told you I'd watched about 10 minutes, and I found the beginning so slow that I basically abandoned it with the intention of going back, but no rush to do so. And then I threw it out to you guys, and okay, now I got to watch it. And I'm glad I did. I won't say I loved it, but I did find it absorbing as it went along. I think it was very well done. I think she's excellent, as she always is.
Elisabeth Moss, you should say.
Elisabeth Moss. And it was, and right in the middle of it, I like the film Capote a lot. I'm guessing more than Stephen. It's almost one of my favorite films. It's not among my very favorite films. I watch it at least once a year. And I stopped in the middle of Shirley to watch Capote again, because it seemed like it might be a point of comparison. And those two films do have a lot in common. I like Shirley, and I loved a couple of musical bits. Man, that Clarence Henry, is that it?
Yeah, Henry, the House Carpenter song, right?
The House Carpenter song. I think I've got his name wrong, maybe.
Clarence Ashley,
which I guess is on the Harry Smith thing. Wow.
Yeah, although it sounded like a re-recording to me, but I actually want to talk about the music when we get to it. I thought the music in the film was used in a very interesting way, but finish with what you're.
And I know Shirley Jackson from, as Stephen says, they didn't talk about the lottery much. I almost wish they backed up the film. I think it might have been interesting to have a film about her while she's writing the lottery. And I think the other thing I read long ago, I don't remember anything, but we've always lived in the castle. Now, can you, one of you guys, tell me what the thing she's working on, did that turn into something famous?
Yep,
The
I don't know
Missing
if it's
Girl?
famous, but it's a real book, and it was really published.
Okay, what's the book?
One of the things, it was called Hangs a Man.
Oh, she mentions that in the book.
One of the things that fascinated me about this was that I really expected to see based on a true story, because it seems like Star Wars is based on it. I mean, every movie seems to say that. It never said that here, and that's because it was all made up.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, I was going to say, look, I've got to ask a dumb question. When they walk to the edge of that high, whatever it is, mountain, there's a shot of just her alone with the baby. And I said, is this couple just a figment of her imagination? And I thought, well, that's either the whole premise of the film or I'm stupid, but why did they have that shot of her alone?
I took that as alternative. You mean specifically like, this woman's either going to jump or she's not going to jump, and Shirley's going to end up with the baby, or the woman's going to. Is that what you mean? Like, why did they? Like, I just took that as playing out some of those scenarios.
Okay, no, I'm referring to a specific shot of just her standing there with the baby and the other one.
I thought that was just sort of. I took it as like someone in the movie imagining that that's one thing that could happen, but they made it pretty clear that it did not play out that way. But that was how I sort of read that. I don't know.
Okay, and then the ending, I thought you could almost interpret that. Okay, this imaginary couple leaves, and then her book's finished, and the husband congratulates her on the book, and maybe that couple never existed, which is a really strange, off the wall interpretation. But I guess, Stephen, you meant in the sense that they were real in the context of the film, but in real life, they never happened. That's what you.
Shirley Jackson was real. She'd written The Lottery just before the movie takes place. She's working on the novel Hangsaman. Michael Stuhlbarg's guy, that was her. He was her husband in real life with the same job and all that. And that's pretty much where it ends. The couple, they were invented. Go back to, it's a novel, I guess, so you can blame or congratulate the novelist, but those people weren't real. And I don't mean as in they were in Shirley Jackson's head. They were just characters that were inserted for whatever reason. I figure it's so that as Shirley's writing the book, she can connect her character that she's writing about, which is supposedly based on that real life person who disappeared, and that's real in real life. And so she connects that person to this girl or woman that's come into her house. It's all very complicated, and I don't think you just go around in circles trying to figure out what's quote unquote real. But they throw in just enough real stuff to make you wonder.
And was the woman also a device to address Shirley Jackson's sexuality?
I have no idea. I mean, it certainly was hinted in the movie, but I don't know that, I don't know.
See, I was thinking about the movie. There's almost like two sort of, I'll call it a cliche, but there's almost two cliches a movie like that has to overcome. One is the cliche of the biopic. I mean, it sounds weird to call it a cliche. It's a genre, but there are many cliches associated with the biopic genre. And also, I think movies about writers have their own sort of set of cliches. I was thinking after I watched the movie, this movie did a very good job circumventing one of those, but not as good a job circumventing the other one. The one I do think of it in a way as a biopic, but really like most biopics, I know this is so common to say this now, but most biopics are just so bad that the ones that tend to be interesting are the ones that they are a bit more like they have just enough in them that they're based on something, but it's definitely as much a work of the imagination. And I'm so glad, and I do give the director full credit for this, is that I don't think there's one point in that movie where she even has like Shirley or someone thinking back to something that happened in her childhood or something. It's a biopic, not of Shirley Jackson. It's a biopic about this book that she wrote, that she was working on. If I want to know about Shirley Jackson's life in movie form, I'd happily watch a documentary about her. But to watch someone, playing her in childhood and then the rise and fall of her career and the heartaches and the setbacks, this is just so much more interesting of a way to approach it. On the writer thing, I don't think it was quite as successful necessarily. But
I was going to say that's what it most has in common with Capote, in that it's about a writer, but it's about a specific book and the events of a specific book.
I will watch that actually. That's what's his name? Philip Seymour Hoffman, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's great. Now he's if the film's remembered for anything, as time goes on, it'll be for his performance. He won the Academy Award. Everybody knew he was going to win it. But there's much more to it, for me at least. There's Catherine Keener. There's Chris Cooper. There's great desolate photography of the Midwest. There's a great score. There's other stuff I like about it. I don't know. Surprisingly, that film stayed with me. Go ahead, Stephen.
First of all, just to second what Scott says, man, biopics suck. And the only time they don't suck is when they just aren't biopics, and then they're okay. And this surely is an example. It's not a biopic. It barely has any relationship to events, just enough so that we're having this conversation, and that's it. It's closer to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf than it is to The Lottery.
You beat me to it. I wanted to bring up that because I wanted to say that couple. That's one thing. The younger couple. That's what they gave the film. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf dynamic. There were scenes where they were arguing, and I right away thought of Virginia Woolf. And probably other reviewers have pointed that out.
Now, as far as, I think someone maybe asked in an email about the process of writing on film, or writer on film. And I liked it, but it didn't transcend anything, but we have her researching the lost person for her book. We have her frustrated when things aren't going well in her book. sometimes the movie itself was just bizarre enough that you can almost imagine if Shirley Jackson had made a movie, it would be kind of like this. It's a little off-center, a little kinky in some way. But that's not the same as seeing somebody. I mean, she was at a typewriter a lot, but the typewriter didn't seem to be the important part. The part seemed to be that she had something in her brain and she was going to get it out eventually, even if she needed to pal around with the woman who'd moved into her house or whatever. So in that sense, it was cliche, but I liked it okay anyway.
I think it probably had about the same amount of actual sitting at a typewriter writing that Capote does. You know, you see it. It doesn't dominate or anything. You see it. Of all those, the films I mentioned, Naked Lunch, and I looked at the list you sent, Stephen. It was, you know, there are films on there I love, but boy, it's a stretch to call them the guy that made it up. I mean, he's just putting any film in that has a writer.
Yes.
There are films that, like Sideways, you know, he's talking about a book that he's finished.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with being a writer.
Yeah, there are films. I'll just say quickly, Phil. There are films about writers, but films about writing.
Yeah.
You can capture a writer on film, but can you capture writing on film? That's
even though I didn't like it, I'm wondering if the most ambitious film along those lines might be something like Naked Lunch, where they really try to put you inside the mind of Burroughs as he's writing Naked Lunch, so much so that the novel spills out into the film itself, right? I'm sure there are other films, but that one definitely tried to do what you could do on film with that process.
It's been so long since I've seen that. I mean, I was thinking about that just almost in terms of any art form, really. Like, it's really hard on a film to capture, like, in an interesting way, the quote unquote artistic process. But it's particularly hard with something like writing, because at least if it's like music and stuff like that, then you can have like two people playing off each other or a group, and you get some cliches with that, but you can come up with some interesting scenes of a band working out a song or something.
But like the Brian Wilson film.
That was actually a very good example. I thought the scenes where he was in the studio trying to do pet sounds and stuff, I thought they handled that really well. It was interesting. But when it's writing, it's a solitary. Even painting movies are kind of the same.
Well,
like I've seen a few and I've never liked them that much, but I haven't seen any of the good ones. Maybe I've only seen a few. Pollock was okay, but
well, that's what I was going to bring up. Pollock, I think that does a pretty good job. I mean, I know it's all interior, right? So you see him get the sort of inspiration, and the music's playing, and he's at the canvas. I think it does a pretty good job. But
that's true with the music. They show it's fairly lively the way it's done. I guess. Yeah. It's hard to capture though, in writing in particular. I mean, did you see the Simpsons email I sent you back in response, Phil?
Yeah, Spartan Fink.
I mean, isn't that the ultimate, right? Like almost like cliched writer's movie. Like, isn't he always agonizing and stuff? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yes. That's one of the great Simpsons moments.
Barton Fink.
Basically describes my movie watching up until I was about 15. So what else about it? Well, what do we want to say about Elisabeth Moss? I'm using the royal we. I can't believe it. What do you want to say about Elisabeth Moss?
I kind of, what was the other character's name? The woman also behind Stephen, June, was it June? No, Rosie or something, right? Was it Rose? Rose,
yes.
Yeah. I found her.
Pointing at her.
Yeah, okay.
She's Odessa Young. That's the name of the actress.
I found there's a little more shading or something to her character. I kind of like the way her character evolved. I found her more like, there's something about Elisabeth Moss in certain, again, I think it was when they're playing up the anxiety of a writer that I had this little bit of like, I liked her otherwise, but I don't know, there's some certain scenes with Elisabeth Moss where just like they had to play up the anxiety of the writer, the tortured artist or something. And I know it's probably real, but my radar tends to go up a little bit. And I found the other woman was more like, she was fresh to it. She was a bit naive. She had a lot more to learn, a lot more to grow. I found her story just a little more interesting. So
I agree. Not to take away from Elisabeth Moss, she's great, but she's got the Oscar role. You know, oh,
Yeah.
whoever gets that part, they're going to get a nomination. This
Yeah.
woman, Odessa Young, I didn't know her. My wife recognized her from the Stand, the TV show, but I thought she was great. And I think Scott gets at something. That part is written to show growth and allow the actor to demonstrate what they're going through. And Elisabeth Moss is just a little more one key because I think the way it's written. I mean, honestly, I thought I don't want to pick on Elisabeth Moss. She's great in this movie.
Yeah.
But if I was doing an Oscars, I'd put Invisible Man over this one for her alone. That's all I'm speaking of there. And what the heck, everything she does is great. So it's kind of irrelevant. But yeah, Odessa Young, I just want to keep her name in my head because I got a feeling we're going to see her more.
Yeah, she was really good. I thought you brought her up, so you haven't seen anything else by her then, right?
The actress?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Like I say, I had seen something of her because I was watching this TV show, but I didn't recognize her.
Hmm.
It was my wife who said, "Oh, that's that person from the TV show." Now my wife is watching this movie. She's heard of Shirley Jackson, and that's about it. She doesn't know the lottery. She doesn't know any of this stuff.
No, that's
She
me
liked
too.
the
That's
movie.
me also.
You know, she came to it not caring that it was a movie about Shirley Jackson. It was a movie. She
Yeah.
liked it, you know.
I liked of the two male leads. I liked Shirley Jackson's husband.
He's interesting.
I thought for some reason he reminded me of somebody else. I don't know, it was Mandy Patinkin or somebody. I thought I was seeing an actor I'd seen before, but it wasn't. Anyway, he was sort of doing a high wire act all through the film in terms of his relationship with her. Yeah, they were both absolute scoundrels. I liked when Rose found out. Shirley let him know what was really about the Shakespeare Society. That was great. I got to tell you, I do have a Shirley story in relation to the lottery.
I know this. This is when I'll just say this is when I first heard of Shirley Jackson. Believe it or not.
Okay,
When
so
you
I told
me
you this story, Scott. When did I?
Yeah,
tell you?
when I interviewed you about teaching.
Okay. I don't know if I should go. It's not that great, really.
No, I think it. No, tell
Okay.
it.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Keep it to 30 seconds. It's just
I can always edit it out.
yeah. Destined for the cutting room floor. Here I go.
Yeah.
It was the time that my grade 8 teacher showed us the lottery. We were in a pod situation, so 3 classes had joined together. It was like, I've since found out it was a version shot in the early or late 60s in Sweden or something, but in English. Anyway, the thing that made such an impression was he didn't tell us anything about it. He didn't set it up at all. He just said, we're going to show you this film. So we're all watching it, trying to figure it out. And then the ending comes and the whole pod is just shocked, like mortified. And he was trying to provoke us, and he did, because he said, so what do you think of that? And the first kid walked right into the trap, said, well, that was stupid. Why did they stone her? And he was, well, why was it stupid? You need to explain yourself. And he would force people to explain. And it's just so memorable. I never, ever forgot that experience.
So Phil, that's not even the story I remembered you told me, though, unless
I have another one. That's the story.
unless my brain is damaged.
Oh, was it
from all
me
that
and then? Well,
yes, you told me
2.
that you played
Yes,
the movie
that's
for your
part
kids.
2. Part 2 of the story is that I would play it for my kids, except I played it for a couple of grade 6 classes. And then one year I caught myself playing it for a grade 4 class, just the last scene. And when it ended, I'm looking at them and they're a little shaken up, I think. And I'm thinking, why am I showing this to a grade 4 class?
Yeah.
What if one of these kids goes home and says, what'd you do in school? Wow, teacher showed us a film where a lady, she got the whole town threw rocks and killed her and there was some blood. I'm risking my job. What am I just one of the two or three times where I was certain that I had crossed the line in my teaching career.
That was the story you told me.
Yeah. Well, that's what made me show my class that I always remembered what an impression it made on me. And I wanted to share that experience with a bunch of 8-year-olds.
That's great.
Somebody should, well, you can't really make it into a full-length film. It's destined to be a short. There's just not enough there. It's amazing.
I'm
It
gonna
really
read
is.
the I'm gonna read the lottery. The one thing the movie did make me think, and I mean, I think I'd heard of Shirley Jackson before, but honestly, I'd never given her much thought. And I'm not a reader of fiction, but I actually realized after watching that movie, one way maybe to get back into fiction, because I have felt a gap in my life. I have not been a serious fiction reader literally since I've been in college. Would maybe be some good short stories, and I think I will start with the lottery actually. So
Yeah, it's a good one. I've got it in some collection. I can't think what it's called.
I found it
Uh,
online if you want to just read it on your computer.
since we were talking about
The stories
Stanley,
online, yeah, would be.
sorry, I was
No,
just going to
what's,
say,
go ahead.
since we were talking about Stanley, what did you guys think of the scene? I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on it, being writers and stuff yourself, but the scene where he basically eviscerates the guy's
Oh,
whatever
that
it
was
is,
good.
his thesis or something at the dinner table. What'd you think of that scene?
I liked it
It
because
was a
I
great
was waiting.
scene.
I was waiting to see what word he would come up with. He said,
Yeah.
"What's the word? I'm going to give it to you in one word." And I had a feeling it was going to be. I thought he was going to say preposterous or god awful, but I liked. And then when he sort of turned his head, derivative. That was
Yeah.
good.
I had the opposite problem when I was writing my dissertation. I could write, and everybody on my committee knew that, and I knew that. So it was never a case that they were going to say your writing sucks. On the other hand, especially at the prestigious English department at Cal, I didn't have very many footnotes, and I was writing about detective novels, and I was always very aware that what I was doing wasn't exactly writing about Chaucer. So I never worried about the writing, but I kept waiting for someone to say, start over, you can't write about this crap. And it never happened. But
Wow.
I was expecting it, I have to say.
I'm sure I've mentioned this story too, Scott, but I've got to say the best thing a professor ever wrote on a paper of mine. It was the first philosophy course I took, and I had to write a paper on Plato. And I had no idea how to write a philosophy paper. So I wrote it, and he gave me a 50. And the comment was, I can almost remember it word for word. He said, I assumed, and he underlined assumed, I assumed you could read. You didn't need to spend 10 pages proving it to me. So, I mean, God, it was the last philosophy. Should you be writing
Wow.
stuff like that to first-year students? It was,
Yeah,
I never took
that's
another
tough.
philosophy course.
Wow. That's funny.
When I went back to college after 10 years in a factory, I started with a writing class, and I didn't know if I could write. And the first assignment, I got like a C- or something. So I thought, okay, I can't write. The second one was about Martin Luther King, I think. And I didn't do anything different. And the teacher read it to the class. It was so good. So I waited until the end of the semester. And then I went to the teacher and I said, now now I can write. Well, I know I can write. What if I turn in that first paper again? What do you think? Is it still a C-? Well, no, it's good. It's all about reputation. You didn't know who I was.
Yeah,
You thought
yeah.
it sucked. Now you think it's great.
That's funny.
It's a little arbitrary.
So
What do you want to say about the music, Scott?
Yeah, so the music, I mean, as you guys know, I have not been a huge movie watcher the last several years, so I could be wrong about this. But one thing I found very interesting about the music in that movie, the soundtrack songs, not the score so much, although I think the score was pretty good too. But I found that, it's based in like what, the 1940s, basically, right? I think is when it takes
No,
place.
I think the early 60s, wouldn't it?
No, I don't think.
Like
No, I think
51
it's
or 52, maybe.
Wow, I'm way off. Okay.
Yeah, I know it came out before like rock and roll or whatever. Like I think it didn't what's the story you were just talking about the lottery? Isn't that from 1947 or something like that? But anyway.
Wow,
Yeah,
I
we just
thought
got
it was
So
48.
Okay, 48. So one thing
1950, call it.
Okay, so one thing I found very interesting though is like they had about 4 or 5 songs in the movie that were memorable, and I found it was very much an attempt by the director, maybe, unless it's not unusual, I don't know if it is, but to actually use those songs in a way that we are, that Phil and I have been discussing for years and years, and Phil has written a book about contemporary music in a movie now. And I just found it unusual because I don't think there's a lot of movies out there that are based, pre-rock and roll. where they use music like that. And what I mean is they seem to use these songs in a way that was very deliberately like meant to make you think about it a little bit. Like they didn't usually when you hear, I think when you hear like, you know, it's not like they haven't played like Sinatra songs and stuff like that in movies based in the 40s or the 30s or something, or jazz songs, but they really do almost always have it just as like, so you know where you are kind of thing. Like, oh, Sinatra's on the, like turn on the radio. Oh, there's like, you know, Frank Sinatra song or something. So you know you're in 1946. With this, it's like, no, they actually used them in a way that were sort of meant to comment on what was going on. The House Carpenter one was a great example. I'm not talking the lyrics, but it was a very clear, like, you know, we're putting this song on the screen and you're going to pay attention. And if you notice, that scene was followed up by the Stanley was actually singing it. He was doing a jig in the house to it. That was great. But there was also that song about, and I looked them up. I think the group is called the Bell Sisters or something. They have
that was really good. That's where
the song, the baby song or whatever,
about
right?
The affair, or where she calls him to task for the
yeah.
affair.
So there was that, and what was the other scene? I thought I wrote them down here.
The Lead Belly song was great.
The Lead Belly as well. And I don't know, like, am I off base by thinking for a movie based in that time frame, you don't often get songs of that period, presumably, used kind of in the same way. Like you would get them in like a Scorsese or a Tarantino film or something like that. And it's like I thought it was really well done. I ended up liking all of those songs. I've listened to the Lead Belly since the movie, and the first minute of that song in particular is just fantastic. So,
no, I think you're right. I see what you mean now. It's like taking a Virgin Suicide approach to music, but it's the 40s. It's not rock and roll.
Yeah.
What did you think of the music, Stephen? Did it make any impression on you?
I agree with what Scott said, but I couldn't name a single song out of it after the fact. It seemed appropriate at the time, which means it didn't bug me. And a lot of time, that's all that needs to be done. So that I don't go, what? And all part of it was not out of place. You know, something like Marie Antoinette, I can't get over that. It may be good, but I spend the whole movie saying that's not supposed to be there. So in that sense, in this movie, the music seemed appropriate. Beyond that, I didn't really notice it one way or the other.
It's great that you mentioned that, because Phil and I are going to be talking about Marie Antoinette sometime soon. So when we have to talk about Sofia Coppola.
I think it's amazing. It was kind of a surprise to me that they would have had courses like that where professors were playing music like that in class in the 40s. That struck me as, was that an invention of the film?
It was a pretty arty college, I think. So that's the only thing it was an arty sort of place, but yeah, like, and I guess that was a neat scene though, when he was clearly like the class, the people in the class kind of thought right away, oh, this guy's pretty eccentric.
I think it will probably, Stephen's right, it's the Oscar role. She'll be nominated for Best Actress, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, maybe not. There was only 5. They don't expand those categories. There are only 5. I would say she probably, especially in a year where she did the 2 prominent films, they usually pick one of them.
Was it a big enough? Was it a big enough movie, or was it a big movie, or
with critics? I don't know if it was any movie other than.
Yeah, that's true.
Exception.
What was a big movie?
It's about a literary figure, and Invisible Man is a horror movie. So if they have to pick between those two, I just imagine they'll go with Shirley. But Invisible Man, hell, that was a good one.
In the other film roles I've seen her in, she was one of the couple, the friends in Us, the Jordan Peele film, right? And the one she made with Rushmore guy, Max Fisher, blanking out on his name, Jason Schwartzman, that was based on Philip, it was sort of about Philip Roth or based on a Philip Roth story. You know what I'm talking about? Or Philip was in the name, was in the titles.
Oh, I saw the ad for that. That movie seemed to go nowhere.
Yeah, it didn't. She was really good in it, but I don't think I cared for the film all that much, or I forgot about it quickly.
She was in On the Road.
Never saw On the Road.
That cast is a cast of a billion. Every character in the book made it to the movie, so they had to find someone.
So
So
who
she got a
was
little
she?
buried in there.
Who did she play in On the Road?
She played Galatia Dunkel, if you know the book.
I do. Well, it's been years since I wrote it, but since I wrote it.
Since you wrote On the Road. Can you give me a
Sorry.
digital autograph or something?
Yeah,
That's
the
pretty good.
aging's not going well.
All I did was name my son Neil. I didn't actually write the book.
So you named him after On the Road, right?
You know, as I often say, no.
Okay.
But why did the name come to me? Because of Neil Cassidy, of course. But when my son was, I don't know, 10 or 12, there was some footage of Neil Cassidy on TV. He was throwing his sledgehammer and talking a mile a minute. Neil, come out here. I want you to see this. And he looks at this guy on the screen and he says, who is that crazy man? That guy's crazy. And I said, well, you're not really named after him. I'm not nothing.
Stephen, I imagine, I don't think Phil watched this. I didn't. And actually, I probably won't, to be fully honest, but is The Handmaid's Tale. She's in that.
I want to watch that.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to. I don't know.
The only problem is I have, again, it's the old problem. I have a bootleg DVD and I tried watching the sound. I'm struggling to hear it. You know, I need subtitles. I'm going to need one of those networks to start streaming it again, or I'll buy the DVD. She was also in, and I think I've seen this. This was well before Mad Men, and she got like 5th billing in Girl Interrupted. But I don't remember the film that well, and I certainly don't remember her in it. The one with Angela Jolie and Winona Ryder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stephen, are you a fan of Handmaid's Tale? Is it Handmaids or Handmaidens? Handmaids.
Right. Handmaid's Tale. We liked the first season quite a bit. Second season came along. And we quit watching after a few episodes, and that's not a criticism. We just quit watching it. And now it's 4 seasons. But so that's certainly the first season was great. I just thought, okay, now they told that story. I didn't really understand why there were more seasons.
I heard that from a lot of people. I read that in a few places, I think, that after season
I wonder
1,
if they're still drawing from the book, or they just, because that's what happened with The Leftovers, right? They basically told the story of the novel in the first
season 1, yeah.
Then they had to just wing it from there.
Yeah.
I don't want us to be done without mentioning the name of Josephine Decker.
Yeah, I looked.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't seen anything by her, Stephen. I looked up her credits.
I mean, I'm gonna, for the record, I'm gonna read this off IMDb. 18 acting credits, 16 as a director, 10 as a writer, 10 as an editor, 4 as a producer,
Wow.
2 as a cinematographer, and 6 various. And of all of those, until Shirley, I had seen 1 episode of 1 TV show.
Wow.
I never heard of her. Clearly, she's been busy. She's got stuff going on. She does a great job in Shirley. Josephine Decker, I look forward to your next work.
I've heard that her, I did read a little bit about it. I think her movies at least prior to this one are quite a bit more experimental or avant-garde, I think, or underground, whatever. Like I've heard she's quite an experimental movie maker, and this was considered a bit of a, move into more into the mainstream or whatever. So.
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember maybe seeing a trailer. She had one 2 or 3 years ago with Molly Parker. It had something to do with a drama troupe. I may have seen that. Did you guys notice who the executive producer was for Shirley?
Yep, Scorsese.
Yeah.
Stephen, when you're saying she's like she's done this many as a cinematographer, directed this many TV movies, actor, I was going to say, yeah, but can she record a Zoomcast?
And can she write On the Road?
Yeah. Did she write On the Road? Yeah.
Anyway, well,